beaming from Pacific Junction Hotel to Earth. Girth.
Hey, Sammy.
Hey, is this Toni?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for taking some time to do this. I know it's been kind of hectic, and you had the premiere party and the launch of the new show, Luke Cage, and all that stuff. So that's been really exciting.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind week.
Yeah. What's your MO at parties, premiere parties? Are you kind of like hanging out by the chips and dip? Are you dancing?
Well, considering it's in the middle of a work week, we hadn't finished the show that we're currently on. They showed 2 episodes, which was very exciting, and then we went to a party at actually one of my favorite restaurants in Harlem, and you get to speak to a couple people, hang out. But I was kind of at the table with the costume designer and the set decorator and the production designer, the people you feel comfortable with, and then seeing people that had left the show that I hadn't seen in a while, so that was lovely. But at a certain hour, it became bewitching, and I went home.
All right. It's hard for people who've never been on set to really becomes a family, especially something like a little longer, like a TV show, where you're seeing people over and over again.
And for long hours. Long hours,
yeah.
But in the sense of a family, people that you depend upon. There's no. I don't think any one person can stand up and say, "I am this show," other than maybe the showrunner.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But, as the art director of the majority of Luke Cage, there's nothing that I do that you could point out and say she did that by herself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with a team. I'm with a production designer, a set decorator, a team of assistant art directors, a graphic designer, coordinators, PAs, carpenters, grips, scenics, dressers, riggers. I mean, there's not one job, not one person makes the set happen.
Yeah. You're an Avengers, basically, or Defenders, I guess, because this is the Netflix series, right?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
And you mentioned the
much smaller scale.
There you go. You mentioned the production designer. That's Lauren Weeks. The set decorator is Allison Forling. Did I pronounce that right?
Forling. Correct. That's correct.
And then the graphic designer is Zachary Zerlin.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you are then the art director, right? Is that the official IMDb title and stuff?
Correct. That is correct.
So
for Luke Cage, I art directed the first 11 episodes, and I wound up production designing the last 2 episodes.
Nice. So what does that mean then in English for people who don't know or not familiar? Because everybody's obviously seen, there's interviews and things like that with the actor, with the showrunner, all those kind of things. But for what you do and how you contribute to the show, what does that mean in English?
Okay, so if I were to break down, for an undergrad, I studied architecture. I have a Bachelor of Architecture degree.
From University of Southern California.
Correct, yeah.
I pay attention.
I love it. So, I think what that, if everybody understands what that is, that's a person that, or they think of it as a person that designs the buildings. So if you think of it as, if the production designer is concerned about the overall space, the overall idea, the overall visual for the entire film project, etc., the costume designer is concerned about the look of the actor, right? But the production designer is concerned about the look of the overall.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that you see, generally speaking, is based off of a conversation that the director, the writer, the creator, the showrunner, the production designer, and the costume designer have had. So the production designer oversees the visual. Underneath the production designer, you have the art director and the set decorator. The art director acts very much like an architect. Anything that deals with the walls, the construction of them, making sure they're on budget, on time, hiring the crews, making sure that they have everything on schedule.
Lauren Weeks actually tweeted about one of the walls, the bathroom wall, I think, in Luke Cage, in his apartment or whatever. It's actually a chain link, like the belt that he used to wear back in the 70s.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's wallpaper.
Yeah.
That's the wallpaper in the bathroom. The wallpaper is actually purchased. So any wallpaper, any furniture, any tiles, any floorboards, anything that is not wood comes from the set decorator. And so Allison actually is a person, between Allison and Lauren, they picked out that wallpaper. And it's a great find. Anything that we can do that hint to, first and foremost, the world of these characters of the superhero of Luke Cage, that are Easter eggs back to either the origin story, the 1972 comic, or that are hints to other Marvel projects or future projects. That we look for to do as much as possible.
It also works too for the actors, because like I've been on set before, and you'll see sometimes I was in a house set and there was a whole pile of mail by the front door, which is just like everybody else's house, but they had like actual mail like to the characters and addressed to the characters and stuff like that. So for the actors too, it kind of gives them a nice little cue when they step into this world that now they're Luke Cage or they're whatever the actor is, right, or whatever the character is.
Well, I think the difference between a set and a museum piece is that it's lived in. A set has a story that has to evolve, and in order for you to believe it, you have to understand that Luke Cage lived in that apartment, only 6 months, because the apartment that he was in before got blown up during Jessica Jones when the entire bar got blown up. So you have to understand that there's history behind it, but we allude to certain elements to the future, So if you have something like, in particular, Harlem's Paradise, which is this massive nightclub that's beautiful, but just like Harlem or like any place in New York City, any place in New York City, it may be new and renovated and beautiful, but the architecture may be really old. So you look at a place like Harlem's Paradise, which is a set on a soundstage, but hopefully you look in and you feel like you're in a piece of nostalgia of what might have been a lounge or a nightclub in the Harlem Renaissance, or a current day that's been renovated to, for the current audience.
Right.
But you walk in and the floors, hopefully, the designer wanted terrazzo floors. Well, on a television screen, you can't tell if they're real or if they're painted. So we painted a whole bunch of boards to make them look like terrazzo, and when we laid them in, one of the Marvel executives came in and he said, "Why would you spend all this money on terrazzo?" And it just speaks to the ability and the skill set of part of our family, which are the scenics that are amazing. It's
like magician, right? It's not like he's actually chopping the lady in half. It's an illusion.
Yes, it's what you see. I mean, let's say you were to watch a scene, I can't think of anything particular as it relates to Luke Cage, but let's say you were watching a scene and it's like a family and they're preparing breakfast on a Saturday morning, and one of the parents is frying up some bacon and they have some toast, and as you're sitting there watching, maybe your mouth are like watering because you want some bacon, and you can't smell through your TV, but your senses are heightened by the story that's being told, and it makes you fill in the blanks, hopefully, of what's happening,
right?
What you see. Your eyes are helping you fill in the blanks of your other senses,
and in case of baking, your nose as well. So is it difficult shooting in New York City, because you did obviously some set locations in New York City, and because New York City is kind of going through this gentrification, and both Daredevil and Jessica Jones and even Luke Cage, they need that kind of gritty, dirty. It's almost harkening back to like New York City when it had the streetcar graffiti and all that kind of stuff. Is it difficult to find or to make those places look that dingy, or is there still places and pockets in New York City that make it easy?
It's an excellent question. Here, I'll tell you. I'll give you a little trip back on Daredevil. Daredevil was our first show, Daredevil season 1. And it was the first of these Marvel Netflix series. And when we first started, we kept saying, what is this Hell's Kitchen? Because if you were to come to New York City now and you went to Hell's Kitchen, which is a real neighborhood, a real place, it's not Hell's Kitchen that was the Hell's Kitchen that anybody would think of.
Right.
Hell's Kitchen is, a lot of places in New York is shishi frou-frou with high ends and, cupcakes that cost $10 a pop, and you know what I mean? It's not a place that I can afford to walk past.
Yeah. When the cupcakes are that much, it's like it's nobody's neighborhood.
Exactly. But it's not the Hell's Kitchen. It's not the dirty, gritty, grimy, rat-infested, back alley.
Don't forget the junkies.
Junkies, exactly, that's dreamed up in this comic book world. And so yes, we do have to come in and everything is a little dirtier, a little grimier, a little we heighten reality. It's not real. A lot, obviously we shoot in real places, but we come back and we heighten reality of what the experience or what the story that's being told.
A lot of people don't remember that Times Square used to be like porn shops and things like that. Like, Times Square wasn't a place where you would go and actually hang out. It would be like a vampire movie. You gotta get out before sundown.
Yeah, you gotta watch like Taxi Driver or some Chopped. A lot of films from the 70s to see the dirty, gritty, Times Square, and also knowing that Hell's Kitchen is, just a few blocks north and west of Times Square, in an even seedier neighborhood.
Yeah.
In a very, very specific, one could say gang not now, but in the time that might be referenced, much more Irish community, much more gang infested, in what's and very divided, very segregated. We looked at a lot of films when we first started on Daredevil as reference to what this Hell's Kitchen might be, and the world that Lauren, as the production that it created, was, very, very, very specific, along with Stephen DeKnight and the whole team, about figuring out how to make this world that, as you say, is, the $10 cupcakes does not exist.
Yeah. What was the films that you guys watched? Was it, I guess, Taxi Driver? You mentioned that one.
No. What, I have to, there's if I could put you on hold real quick.
Yeah.
Go look on the shelf. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay, Sammy, of course it's not on the shelf, but I'm going to look it up because I know who was in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we probably gave it to the designers when they came on to do Daredevil season 2. But it was a Robin Wright film. I think. Let me look her up because I'm going to find it, because it's a great film for reference, actually. In the late 80s, actually. Of course, I'm not seeing it. Of course, I'm not seeing it.
We can move on. It's okay. I was just curious.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'm going to find it. I promise you. But go ahead.
But you mentioned the word gritty a couple of times when we were talking about old school New York City. Is that, are you operating to, like, as a guideline with, like, certain buzzwords like gritty or dark or trashy, something like that? Is that kind of how the communication breaks down between all the different departments that you're working with?
Well, it's interesting because it's, I don't know how to, oh, wait, hold on. I think it's State of Grace. Is that the name of the movie?
That rings a bell.
State of Grace.
Okay. And that was what...
Sean Penn, Ed Harris, Gary Oldman.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know this one. I've never seen this one. And that's what was the reference for Daredevil, I guess, or for the old school New York City?
I'm not going to say it's a reference for Daredevil, but it was one of the first films. We looked at a couple. Obviously, we looked, when we first start, on all the shows that we do, we usually do the first 2 episodes together. So, if you remember, the second episode was the main hallway fight sequence. So we looked at Old Boy, we looked at Raid, and we looked at State of Grace, but we're kind of looking at a combination of different films for reference, not only in terms of style, but also in terms of fighting style and, what what we had to create.
Yeah, and I mean, we've also seen, too, the fighting, just a little bit of a tangent, but the fighting's kind of evolved, too, from the way that they fight in Daredevil versus the way they fight in Luke Cage.
Well, they're different.
Yeah.
Daredevil is, he's a little guy. I don't want to say little guy, but in comparison to Luke Cage.
No, we're all little guys compared to Luke Cage.
Yeah, that's true.
That guy,
right. Yeah.
He's built like a house.
Little guy. Yes, indeed. But the fighting style's got to be different.
Yeah.
It's listen, we have some of the most amazing stunt choreographers on each one of these shows, and they're all different. The only one that has been repeated is Philip Severa, who did Daredevil season 1 and season 2, which obviously it makes sense that he would come back and do season 2 for Daredevil. But they're different people. I mean, like, Jessica Jones, there's nothing graceful about her.
Right.
And there's nothing trained about her, as there shouldn't be. And Luke Cage, he's a big guy, so, granted, he boxed, but, he's not going to be doing backflips and ninja moves or karate. That's not his style.
And there's a different mentality too when you know your skin is like you can be broken. So you leave yourself open a little bit in a way that you wouldn't normally in a fight.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, you fight differently. I mean, the
Yeah.
same way that Daredevil senses his are heightened in it. He's blind,
Mm-hmm.
but he's able to hear things coming or hear from down the street outside of a building.
Yeah.
Luke Cage can't do that. Jessica Jones can't do that. But Jessica Jones is strong and can lift up a car or do something. But none of these quote unquote superheroes or street level defenders are they're not. None of them are putting on spandex and you feel like they're about to fly into the air. You feel like they're all kind of clumsy and they're kind of figuring their way out.
Mm-hmm.
And understand it, but it's not. It's almost more believable. Like you feel like you might run into this person, which is
it's very grounded. Just because it's just again that's why I think that they've linked all these characters in this kind of separate Marvel universe, I guess, in a way, because they're all very much street level. They're all kind of like they fit within this New York City that you guys are portraying.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
So,
it's a different than any other superhero. Nobody's flying through the air.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean, but also even in the sense of what's lovely about these series is that you have generally speaking 13 episodes to develop a character, which a 2-hour movie doesn't give you the grace or the ability to afford. So it creates a much different type of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And just by the mere fact that it's on Netflix, it allows the storytelling to become a 13-hour long movie, right? Because you could watch it all in one sitting, or you can watch it over a couple of days, or you could watch once a week if you want to. But the type of storytelling is much different.
And then it's also the more adult. I mean, obviously some of the language. There's some sex scenes here and there. They get a little spicy. So it's just like it's totally different, which is where like the Avengers movies, for example, right? Iron Man, Thor, all those ones are kind of more aimed at a more mainstream general audience. You want to pull in some kids sometimes too, right?
Yeah, well, the age bracket is different.
Yeah.
The rating is different.
They don't get spicy in the Avengers movies.
Huh? Say it again?
They don't get spicy in the Avengers movies.
Well,
Yeah.
It's my nephews are allowed to see the Avengers movies, but they're definitely not allowed to see these TV shows, not till they get a little older.
There you go. So I was asking you about the how you communicate between these different departments and kind of create this look, and if there was certain buzzwords or themes like gritty, trashy, dark, etc., that you kind of like all use as a shorthand, so that when you find chain link wallpaper or something, you're like, that's it, we got to put this in.
Well, it's interesting. So generally speaking, everything that we buy or create is new, and so it has to then be aged. And if you want something to look as if it's been there for more than a minute, you have to age. There's different age levels. So the scenics or the painters, they're the ones that age things. And between the designer and the charged scenic, they have a code of like, is it, has it been there for 10 years? Did it just get there last week? Is it, am I aging it on a level of 10 to 1? Where, what's the level? And so that's the main coding or buzz, because anything that you buy, generally speaking, is new.
Mm-hmm.
But you just have to make it look as if it's not so new. If you just go back to like Nelson and Murdoch. Nelson and Murdoch was, their office in the office set that we created in season 1. And if you go back and you look at it, it's an old building inside of a rather tenement building, rather typical New York City type building. You know that you're in this Hell's Kitchen neighborhood, and this set that it's in, it has kind of disgusting carpeting and creepy old, kind of beautiful architecture with arches and stuff, but it's old and it's kind of run down. If there was ever a shot of the ceiling, there's tin ceiling that's really old and kind of beautiful, but then it has water leaks and pipes that have the paint kind of bubbling up, but as if it's been there and it's been, there's a pipe that needs to be changed, but it hasn't been changed in a good 10 years. And maybe that's the reason why Matt's office kind of looks worse than Foggy's, because Matt can't see it. You know? So
The poor guy.
yeah, the poor guy.
Yeah.
I think he's okay.
Yeah, he's all right. How was that experience then, working between the three shows then? Like, you mentioned, like, obviously Matt and Daredevil, they have a kind of a certain look that they're going for. Luke Cage, like, how are you balancing the three shows, or is there any consistencies between the three shows?
It's an interesting question. I mean, here's what's really interesting about here's the differences and the similarities between the three shows. So similarities, first and foremost, Jessica Jones and Daredevil take place in Hell's Kitchen primarily. All the sets are pretty much located in the neighborhood that we're creating is in Hell's Kitchen. Luke Cage is in Harlem. Luke Cage, the skin tone changes, where we have a massive amount of people of color with beautiful skin tones. What it does is it changes the background, where you may put an actor actors that are of lighter skin tone or white skin tone up against a certain background. It may not look so good up against an African American person. And so finding the balance and understanding that, and understanding how things change when you move. You know, when you move uptown, you move to Harlem, you move uptown, things become more colorful. The palette's more colorful. Even the costume design, even the costumes are much more colorful. And so understanding that how that palette might change, how the production designer, how Lauren Meeks and Stephanie Maslansky, the costume designer, have had to open up that palette by just moving uptown to Harlem. It's an interesting and lovely change for them to explore.
I want to pick up on that because you mentioned obviously that it's set in Harlem. Luke Cage is obviously a prominent African American superhero. You're a black woman. Like a lot of key creators for Luke Cage are black people. Is there a pressure? I guess I'm not even sure that's the right word, but is there a pressure to kind of get it right, or to convey this kind of black experience, or this? I don't even know how to put it, but you know what I'm getting at?
I totally. I don't think that there's a pressure. I felt that there was an excitement, an elatement to have it. It's the first time that I read a script where I saw somebody that looked like me. When I first read the first episode of Luke Cage, I got the script a little early. Don't print that. But I read it. We were probably like only on like episode 6 of Jessica Jones, and I was ecstatic. I was like, oh my God, there's a black woman on this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, reading Misty Knight, and being elated. I went up to Kareem Zreik, who's one of the Marvel executives, and this is before I think even Simone was cast, and I was like, I think I should play Misty. I'm not an actress.
Yeah.
No acting ability. I'm not drop dead gorgeous like Simone. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, but I became like a 6-year-old little girl. Like, I finally read a character that I can relate to. And it makes, when you read something, when you see yourself in the world, you become much more interested. When you don't feel like you're an afterthought, or, oh, we need a person of color, so we're in the hospital set, let's just throw a Chinese doctor down that hallway. You know, it's nice when you're not an afterthought, when you're actually in a character that's developed, that's written by African Americans. That's, you know, and not to say that like it's exclusive. There were writers of different colors and shades, and there were women and men. But when you see yourself, it becomes a different. It's a different. How can I put it? Not process, but it's a different.
Is it a connection almost?
Responsibility. Different responsibility.
That's what I was going for. Yeah, different responsibility.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's something that, like, you know, I think in theory white people can get, but they don't get until it's pointed out. And to understand that, like, you know, when you say a certain such and such person is a man, it's assumed that they're white. If you say otherwise, you say they're Chinese man, or they're black man, or they're a Mexican man, and you know, and why is that? That shouldn't necessarily be the case, but that is, and that's the way that the world is, and unfortunately, that's the way that particular America is, and it's unfortunate. But so based off of that, when I first read Simone or Misty Knight, I was doing backflips. Like completely doing backflips.
Nice. I asked you over email, and because you'd worked obviously on Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Luke Cage, but even before that, you worked on Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes. Like I asked you over email, are you a nerd? And so I'm gonna ask you here, are you a nerd? Is that you?
Well, hey, could you give me the definition of a nerd? Let me ask that. How about?
All right, there we go. All right. I guess you have these kind of nerd leanings where you're interested in kind of like superhero. I don't even know what you classify Sherlock Holmes, but just kind of like science fiction, adventure, action, but of like kind of like almost a pulp variety. There you go. That's how I'm gonna go with it.
Okay. Here's what I will say.
What you got?
If that's the definition of nerd, then no. I will say no.
Then,
but here's what I will say.
What you got?
The projects that I've worked on and have been blessed, and I have to say that truly, have been blessed to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Early on in my career, I will say, except for one or two projects, I did anything that was asked of me because I needed experience. And I needed people to know me. When you don't know anybody and you don't have any opportunities, you say yes to everything that's given to you, and you do it. Now, at this stage in the game, I am looking for families. It goes back to how we started.
Mm-hmm.
When you spend 6, 8, 10 months, or as I've been now, almost 3 years with the same people, you want a good family. I want the story to be good. I want to be entertained by it, but I also want a good family. One of my good friends, he's actually the associate pastor in my church, and he told me the story when he was in college. He studied acting, and one summer, maybe like his junior year, he got a job working as a roofer. And I'm literally, my friend, he's probably like 5'6", kind of short and stocky, sweetheart, good heart, great storyteller, but not a construction worker.
Mm-hmm.
Not the builds, not the, And I'm like, what are you talking about? You roofed. You were like a roofer. And he said, Toni, here's the key. It was summers. It was hot. You're on a roof for 8 hours. Who do you want to be on a roof with for 8 hours? You want to be on a roof with somebody that's a good storyteller and that's a hard worker. And that's me. And so every project that I've been on, it's a roof. And when you're I've worked with, now I'm starting my 5th or 6th project with Lauren Weeks. And the graphic designer, Zach Zerlin, was my student at NYU 12 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, I have a team of people that I work with that I love. The Charge Scenic, Patricia Walker, was on the second Younan film that I ever did. I was on Mona Lisa Smile when I was a kid. And she was the charge on it. And she remembers me when she looks at me and she's like, you're a kid. Now she looks at me like I'm a kid. But, she these are people that, like, I grow up, I get older with, and I want to hang out on the roof with. It's going to be a hot summer day, which means that conditions are not always right. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it snows, but guess what? We're going to be on the roof together. And that's how I look at projects, not necessarily always about the content, but always about the people that are going to be on the roof with me.
That comes through when you watch the Netflix shows, like the Marvel Netflix shows. You can sense that there's something. It's a little different than some of the other TV shows and things that you watch. And it's not just based on the plot or anything like that. It's that family vibe that you're talking about. It comes through. Good. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. How do you think, or how do you equate that? Like, how do you see that? There's a purpose. The way that even when you see the actors doing like interviews and things like that, there's a purpose. The way that they carry themselves, the way that everyone's kind of executing on the show, you can see even like just the actors are more aware of what they're doing. They're trying to make really good choices. And I'm not suggesting that other people just kind of sleepwalk through their shows or anything, but there's it was what you were saying a little bit earlier. Sometimes you just need a job. Sometimes you just need to pay the rent or something like that. So you take certain things. But there's definitely a presence or like a family, like a gang. Yes, very true. We only look internally because we just want to make the world that we create that much better. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. So I just want to, and you mentioned Zachary, I just want to kind of finish off with this then. So you're teaching at NYU, You're working with the next generation of, I guess, designers, or what kind of students are they?
Yeah. I mean, I teach in the drama department. I teach the undergraduate design students, and I teach basically it's a fundamentals of design class. So I teach. I have costume designers, lighting designers, sound designers, and scenic designers, and stage managers. So they are basically the support team for. I mean, the only thing that's missing from that are the playwrights and the actors. So I teach everything but the playwrights and the actors, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's about creating an environment, creating a space. That's what we do. That's what we do for a living. So.
Thank you so much for taking some time to hang out and explain to me what you do for a living.
No problem. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.